I think you're going to.
They're serving the animals by making.
They are. Today they're making pine cone bird feeders to take care of the songbirds and other birds around here, which is really cool. And I have something to ask you all to do too. See this little snowflake? These go to Heartland of Kettering to decorate up their place, along with some cards that the kids have made. So you got a pen and a snowflake. I want you to just write a quick little message, or just even sign your name, and then our ushers will gather these up. This will just take a couple minutes, guys. The ushers will gather these up, and then we'll take them over to Heartland and put them all over the walls. So take a couple of minutes just to do that right now. You should have a pen and a snowflake. If not, reach over to the chair next to you and you'll find one.
We light the first candle to honor Judaism. Speak not one thing with the mouth and another with the heart. We light the second candle to honor Buddhism. However many holy words you read, however many you speak, what good will they do you if you do not act upon them? We light the third candle to honor Taoism. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. We light the fourth candle to honor Hinduism. Put your heart, mind, and soul into even your smallest acts. This is the secret of success. We light the fifth candle to honor Sikhism. Even kings and emperors with heaps of wealth and vast dominion cannot compare with an ant filled with the love of God. We light the sixth candle to honor Confucianism. If you look into your own heart and you find nothing wrong there, what is there to worry about? What is there to fear? We light the final candle to honor Christianity. Brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things.
Today's reading, A Life of Courage by Ernest Holmes. Infinite intelligence governs, guides, directs, sustains, and animates my life. The infinite mind knows no mistake. It is never discouraged. This mind is my mind now. All belief in fear, discouragement, disappointment, or failure is erased from my consciousness. So if you can just take these words into that inner sanctuary for a few moments. So I'm knowing that right here, right now, that we are absolutely the love of God. We are the light of God. We are the power of God. We are the magnificence of God. There is absolutely nothing outside of ourselves except for peace and power and love and joy. God is embedded within every cell of our body. We have a divine design inherently of love and peace and wholeness and beauty. We are that light of God. We are that magnificence. And so I know that this service is in divine order and divine right action, that God orchestrates absolutely every aspect of the music ministry, Reverend Cece in the Children's Church, and absolutely every single congregant right here, right now, is here by divine appointment. And so we know that all is good. And together we say, and so it is.
So we're talking about integrity this month, our shared value of integrity, and I came across this definition in a book called If You Know Who You Are, You Will Know What to Do by Ronald Greer. And he said, integrity is doing the right thing when we know it's the right thing to do. It's who we are. It's being true to the lives to which we have been called. And it's who we are when someone's watching and who we are when there's not a soul in sight. I love that definition. I think it's perfect. And it is one of our shared values, so it's one of the things we try always to live from and hold everything we do up in the light of. Are we in integrity here? And it's always been one of my personal values too, although I have not always lived up to it very well. It takes a lot of courage to live in integrity. It really, truly does. And it takes courage to do the right thing when we know it's the right thing to do. And I've not always had that much courage. It's easy today to hear stories by the dozens about people who do really amazing, remarkable things because they're the right thing to do. There was a guy named Jonathan Smith who was a 30-year-old copy machine technician who just happened to be at that country music festival in Las Vegas. And when he figured out it wasn't fireworks he was hearing, but gunshots, he started to gather up groups of people around him and herd them to safety. And he apparently got through about 25 people, and he had one more group, and he was trying to protect a group of teenage girls, and they got shot in the neck. And he's alive, but he'll carry that bullet in his neck for the rest of his life because the doctors weren't comfortable taking it out. You know, he felt it was the right thing to do, so he did it. And there was a guy named Ken Hodge in Minnesota who jumped off a 30-foot cliff into a river to save an 11-year-old kid who was being dragged away by the current. And he said, I didn't know the boy, he just did it. He said, I didn't think of anything. I just said to myself, I don't have to be afraid. I don't know what I would do in a dire situation like that. I hope I would be able to do whatever needed to be done and that I was capable of doing. I hope I would be willing to put myself at risk for another. But there's all sorts of less dangerous situations we find ourselves in all the time that I think it pays to think about and be conscious of and to know, have an idea maybe of how we might respond. You might have read about Tracy Tong. I love that name and I love her. She's Peruvian Chinese. And she was on the subway and there was a woman harassing two Muslim girls in Spanish. I mean, she was all over them. She was harassing them in English and Spanish. And she stepped in to confront this woman and told them we're all brothers and sisters here. She basically said to the woman, you're an adult, grow up. and we're all in this together. Take care of your sisters and brothers. I thought it was great. Put your big girl panties on, girl, and let's get moving forward, right? And there was a guy named Moise Moranci who stopped to restrain an old man who was fondling a young girl on the subway. You might have seen him on the news. You know, these things like this make us ask, what would I do in such a situation? And if we let them, when we read them, they begin to help us know ourselves better. Like, what are our limitations? What are we capable of? Sometimes, I mean, Tracy Tong's a little itty bitty woman, but sometimes it's simply a matter of saying something. And everybody around you is waiting for you to for somebody to say something, right? And once you start, there's all sorts of support there. But it's being courageous enough to take that first step and say the first thing that sometimes just paralyzes us, right? There's an element of physical risk there that is one of the risks of doing the right thing, just because it's the right thing. And it's a good thing that we examine that and ask ourselves how far we're willing to go. You know, sometimes having courage to do the right thing involves a social risk. Like, think about all the women and men who are speaking up now about sexual harassment. The reason they've kept quiet is because there's such a huge social risk. Did you all see the People of the Year cover story or cover of Time? One of the women who was in that picture and who started this whole current flood of speaking out, she's a hotel maid. And she got fed up with risking her safety trying to clean people's rooms. And often she would be threatened, and a couple of times she was actually assaulted. And she uses a pseudonym because she doesn't want to lose her job. There's a huge social risk there. And the women who spoke up about Harvey Weinstein and other notable and powerful people put their careers at risk to do so. And some of the conscious men who are trying to explain to less conscious men that this has to stop, they get ridiculed by their friends, they get called all sorts of names, they get treated really sometimes pretty badly by the guys who don't want to acknowledge they've ever done anything wrong. Sometimes there's a social risk involved in doing the right thing, and we have to be prepared to say, what kind of social risk am I willing to take? Sometimes there's a psychological risk. I remember once I worked for a guy, actually I worked for a whole string of people like this. I guess I had a lesson to learn, right? He was volatile in his temper, and he would get angry and just like cut me to ribbons with his words. Yes, I was way overly sensitive at the time, but I had to work for angry person after angry person after angry person until I finally got it. Oh, this is about me, not them. I eventually did get it. But, yeah, but this guy could be really withering. He just knew how to do it. And I told him a total lie one time to avoid him yelling at me, and it took weeks to unscramble. And the psychological pain that I was in because I had done that was agony, Doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do sometimes involves those kinds of risks. It might be our safety, it might be our security, whether it's mental or social or psychological. Can we be like Ken Hall and say, I don't have to be afraid? Can we do it even if we are afraid? I come to the conclusion that I must do something in those situations, because the spiritual and psychological pain that it causes when I know I could have done something and I didn't is just, it's too much. Sometimes it takes me a while to know what and how to do it, but the whole while I'm like, I got to do something. I have to do something here. The pain of being out of integrity with what I know is right, or even what I think might be right. I at least have to keep exploring till I can figure out what the right thing for me to do is, right? It haunts us. It haunts us because there's something in our deep self that is trying to signal us, is trying to remind us that doing what is right because it's the right thing to do is who we are. You know, we know we're all in this together. And so part of our spiritual DNA is to care for each other, is to take care of each other. So when we see something happening that we could speak up about or say something about or stop or draw attention to, and we don't do it, we our souls try to get our attention. They kind of bug us and nag us. And I think it happens over and over and over in this long hero's journey called life. It's such an interesting thing, isn't it, to live in this polarity of human and divine? Because the human ego will tell us, don't get involved, don't be stupid. Or, if you say something, people are going to think you're a panty waste, or whatever it is, mind your own business, or it's just a little lie, I can get away with it, whatever it is. The pain of the soul saying to us, you could have done something to make that situation better, or you didn't take responsibility there. It just continues until we start to assimilate at our deepest core what integrity means to us. It doesn't have to mean, there was a guy not long ago in Portland who got killed trying to stop something. And I don't advocate that any of us go out and get killed. He didn't know it was going to happen. But he saw something going on that he just couldn't deal with. But I think a lot of times we let lots of those little things, those much calmer, safer circumstances go by, and we just don't say anything. I was in the store a couple of weeks ago, and I heard somebody muttering under their breath about the person in front of them using food stamps. And the cashier actually took this person on and just said, you have no reason to talk that way to this person. And if you continue, you'll have to leave the store. And it was wonderful to watch. It was wonderful to watch. And, we can all do that, right? We can all do that. We have to assimilate what integrity means to us and for us before that nagging soul kind of stops nagging. And I don't know any other way to do it besides just to remember every day that we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to be afraid. When we take a breath and remember that the God within us is way bigger than anything that's stressing us out or worrying us or making us afraid. The Spirit is the one who's creating the path of our hero's journey, that we're embodiments of that. We're embodiments of the power of the universe. Then, as the reading said, what is there to be afraid of? When we remember, as Ernest Holmes said, that we're one with the infinite, all belief in fear, discouragement, disappointment, or failure is erased from our consciousnness. Ooh, I love that. And the song today said, I wrote it down here somewhere. I wrote down all these. On the other side of fear lies euphoria. Ooh, I love that. What a great line. And Joseph Campbell said something like that. He was the guy who interpreted and assimilated and synthesized the world's myths. And he said, what I think is a good life is one heroic journey after another. Over and over and over again, you're called to the realm of adventure. You're called to new horizons. And each time, there is a problem, the same problem. Do I dare? Do I dare? And then if you do dare, the dangers are there and the help also. In the fulfillment or the fiasco. There's always the possibility of a fiasco, but there's also the possibility of bliss. The fiasco happens when we forget to live in integrity, I think. But there's always the possibility of bliss because Spirit is there too, right where we are, and we don't have to be afraid. It takes courage to do those kinds of things, and it takes courage to live the life to which we've been called. And we're all called. Don't kid yourself. We're all called. Some of us are called to do different jobs like a ministry, or to be the bright spot of possibility at our jobs in business, or to care for and bring love to others, whether we're nurses or massage therapists or whatever it is. Or to show creativity, to allow our creativity to express itself by making things. We're all called to do something. But if you're here in this room, you know that being called is not so much about what you do as it is about who you are. We're all called to be exactly who we are, as fully and completely and brilliantly as we possibly can. Because that's the gift that only you can give, is to be fully you. And to be true to that requires courage. It requires the courage to do a profound inner search, I think, to find out what that gift is. What is it that I'm here to give to the world? In his book, Spiritual Liberation, Michael Beckwith said, the inner journey takes us down roads of self-discovery we have not walked before. And that in and of itself takes courage, right? I haven't ever been down this road. It requires us to surrender, not to society, not to God, not to something out there, but to the next stage of our own evolution. We have to surrender to that. It requires a radical will, a bold step to move beyond our conditioning and our worries about what other people will think, and our worries about maybe I'll get hurt, and just step into the next stage of our conscious evolution, our unfolding. And when we're bold enough to know ourselves well and know who we're called to be, then it's easier to surrender and live into that. Just let it happen through us. And how do we know that we're there? Well, that's why I love that definition so much, because the last line sort of sums it up. It says, integrity is who we are when someone's watching and when there's not a soul in sight. When those two are the same, I think we've arrived at deep integrity. When we do what we do because it's who we are and we know that. And it doesn't mean we do it perfectly. I said last week, that this is the path of stumblers. And I don't know anybody who doesn't stumble and who doesn't succumb to fear from time to time. Integrity doesn't mean we don't get tempted. It just means we're aware that we're tempted, right? And we take responsibility if we give in to the temptation. We take ownership of it. We learn from it, and then we forgive ourselves and take another step into our unfolding. And it means we don't put on a different persona so that other people will think we look good. We'll decide we're a good person. We think we're good people. We don't concern ourselves so much with what we look and how we look and what people say about us, but what we think about it. And when we journey long enough and seriously enough to realize what's really there, what the Buddhists call basic goodness, what we call the divine, God living in us and through us and as us, then we want to kind of snuggle into integrity with that. And then we are the same, whether someone's looking at us or not. I mean, yeah, occasionally you'll sneak like I did last night. I'm a sworn vegan, but I ate brie last night. See, I stumbled. I take full responsibility for that. But also when you say you'll do something and you kind of fudge on it, and you know, right? But as a rule, we don't act really honest when other people are around, and then steal when people aren't looking, right? We live in integrity with that which is at our core. And so when we own that truth, when we own that Buddha nature, that basic goodness, that divine within us, what is there to fear? We don't have to be afraid. When we own that truth and let ourselves be guided by it, how could we be anything other than what we're called to be? This is the divine living as us. There must be a reason that we are exactly as we are, right? We're here to be exactly who we are, full out, freely, consciously. And when we own that truth and let ourselves be guided by it, we become not resistors, but transformers. We stop resisting what's happening and begin to transform it with love. Instead of resisting our own ego's urgings to turn away and mind our own business and keep ourselves safe, we rush out with the spirit of love. And everything about us, our presence, our words, our actions begin to transform what's happening into something better. And I think that's what integrity is really all about. It's about learning to bring that which is truly within us into the outer world and set it free. And the world, I don't know about you, but the world I see needs us. It needs our courage and our integrity like never before. It needs the warriors of love. It needs the people who are willing to live courageous lives of integrity. So what are we waiting for? Let's plunge into the depths of our own beings. Understand what's really there. Because it is something precious and rare and beautiful and powerful and priceless. We don't even, most of us have an idea of how powerful and priceless it is. And take the risk to let it out. Take the risk to let it out. We don't have to be afraid. Because we're spirit in form and we're birthing something new right here and right now through that power of transformation. And so that's my invitation to you this week, is to go a little deeper, look a little deeper within yourself and touch into that place within you that is powerful and priceless, and then just let it out. So who wants the mic? Joe, you can make me run all the way to the back.
I have a 95-year-old farmer friend who lives outside of Bellbrook. He was involved in 3 major battles in Germany at the end of World War II. and he has traveled all over the United States and the world, speaking about his efforts in World War II. He was a member of the 102nd Airborne Command and made several parachute jumps in behind German lines, and he testifies that it takes more courage to speak out in a social setting like you're talking about than to fight some of the battles.
Wow. Who knew? Well, they also say that people are more afraid of public speaking than they are of death. So, so we are what we are, right? Us human animals. Up. Rhea?
Yeah.
Here you go.
Well, I haven't always done the right thing, sometimes because I'm afraid physically or sometimes socially or other things. But when my mother had dementia to the point that she was no longer herself, and she was in assisted living at the Carlisle house, and at the end of her life she was in the dementia, the memory unit, and I would go over on Sunday evening to have dinner with her, and I frankly sometimes resented it. I didn't want to do it. I was frustrated because she just, wasn't herself at all. You couldn't have a conversation with her or anything. And of course, everybody in the room, all of the residents in the room were all in their own heads, so they were all, screaming or yelling, laughing or doing whatever, saying whatever. And it was a very frustrating, depressing thing to do. And the last Sunday, the 13th of August, I had almost talked myself out of going. I thought, she won't know, won't matter to her if I'm there or not. And I thought, Rhea Sue, sometime it's going to be the last. And thankfully I went, because it was the last.
Yes, sometimes it takes courage just to deal with our own stuff, doesn't it? I don't need to do that. Yes, Becky.
I think I really appreciate what you had to share today, so thank you. I think, too, that spark within me, when there's a conflict that arises and I'm being called to something, oftentimes the hesitancy, it's always been the idea that I'm being called to something that's going to be painful for me to do. And if I'm stepping into something that what I'm doing that's going to be painful for me to do, then I'm not answering my call. I'm answering the fear, but not the love that's coming. Because it's that calling that's saying inside of me, there's something in me wanting to be birthed. And if it's something in me wanting to be birthed, it's coming from love for me. And so it's like, if it's calling, then how can I step out in love so when it does it, I feel a greater sense of joy. So that who I'm with, it's not only for me, but who I'm with, I get to see the truth of that person. Like when that woman you talked about at the grocery store, she paused and said to that person, she recognized the beauty and magnificence of that being, whether they had cash or whether they had food stamps, and she stood up for that. And it wasn't, out of angst, but it was out of awareness. And I really have been learning that lately, that call, when I see something, isn't so much to call me to pain, to fight it, because if I'm in fight, then I'm just building the thing I don't want because I'm focused on it. But it's calling me to a greater act of love. And what does that feel like to me, and how can I honor it in me, and how can I celebrate it in another? So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Becky. Yes, we're not resistors, we're transformers.
That's so interesting that this came up today. We were driving home from Miamisburg yesterday, and I was sitting there in silence, and I was just watching all the buildings and the landscape, and how when you're in Miamisburg, it's like you're up higher, and you come into Dayton, and you feel and the buildings get closer together and all of this. And I was just looking. I wasn't saying, I wasn't judging, but I was just observing all of this. And it just hit me so beautifully that it's not where you live, it's how you live. Not where you live, it's how you live. And it was just like, it was such a revelation. And then, you up here talking about this, it just all ties together to that download. It was beautiful. Thank you so much, Reverend CC.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, one in the back.
Hi. feel like I'm living my life in mental illness stereo. My sister, who is mentally ill and ill in many different senses of the word, has accused me of something that's definitely not true and I had no part in, and then has said some very vile things. And I had already decided, because of her negativity and the anger and the manipulation, that I could not participate in her life for my own well-being. And then my new neighbor on my bedroom side of my apartment is mentally ill with a split personality, so I've got two voices yelling at each other all night. And so I have compassion for my sister and for this woman, and I have been to the management about the woman who's next door to me, and I told the manager, I said, I know that she's mentally ill, and I know that she gets kicked out of here. She'll never be in HUD housing again. I said, isn't there something you can do? Because I don't want that for her, but I don't want her as my neighbor either. So my question has been all week is, what am I to learn from this experience? What is my lesson in all of this? So I still haven't figured it out, but I'm working on it. And so what you've said today really hit home with me. Thank you.
You know, that's a tough situation. What is yours to do, and what's integrity for you? And part of that is, how do I protect me and my sanity in all this? How do I stay in a place of center? Life is complicated. It really is, isn't it? Whew, if it were easy. Well, if it were easy, we wouldn't be here, right? We are immortal souls on a journey of expansion and learning and growing and headed towards joy. I do really believe that. So join me as we just come together in a moment of prayer, please. As we take this moment to breathe and remember that there's only one. There's only one life, only one mind, only one vast, infinite universe that is held together with love and by love and through love. And there is no place that love is not. There is no place that wisdom and power is not. From the edges of the universe, creating new space and time out in front of itself so that it may expand, to the tiniest subatomic spaces that are glued together again by that same force, that same power and presence and love. And everything in between is filled with this power and presence and life and joy and happiness and abundance and health and well-being and peace. And all those other things that we identify as part of the mystery we call God. And so that means that right where I am, right where each one of us is, that one is present. Living within each one of us, expressing by means of us. And we have evolved to the point where we are conscious of that. We are conscious that we think and that there is something within us that sees us thinking. That we act and there is something within us that sees us acting. That we speak and there is something within us that hears us speaking. There is this spark of life within each one of us that is one with that power. And so what I know for each one of us is that we gladly and willingly and openly and courageously take that inward journey to discover what's really there. What is it that is our precious gift to give to the world? What is it that integrity means to us at our deepest levels? And what is it that we are one with that makes it so that we do not need to be afraid? What is it that empowers that shift from resistor to transformer? What is it that shows us through the fear into the bliss, into the euphoria, into the joy of being love, bringing love, speaking love, doing love, acting love? being love. And what I know is that we find that place of light and wisdom within us. We see it and know it as truth. We see it and know it and feel it as being who it is we really are. And so we just turn to it. We surrender to it. We live from it. And in that way, we find all the courage we will ever need to live in the purest and highest integrity, to live lives of wholeness and joy and peace. And I just give thanks. I just give thanks for this community, for all of these people who know that they are called to be that transformative force in the world, to be the place love shows up, to be the place of integrity so that other people know what it looks like, to be the wisdom and the power to simply say yes to their becoming. I am incredibly, amazingly, overwhelmingly grateful for this community and its people, for the time that we've had together today, for life itself. And so from this place of deep gratitude, I just let go. I let these words fall into the infinite law of mind, that which always says yes and has already said yes to us. We just let it be, acknowledging that it is already so. And we say together, and so it is.
I'm just a thread, a simple thread in this glorious web of life.
Are all just drops within a stream, flowing towards an ocean of life.
We may forget where we come from. We may forget where we're going to. I might not see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. I'm just a seed, a blessed seed with eternity unfolding in me. And I pray that as I grow, I will reveal the love that illuminates my soul. When I remember where I come from, when I remember where I'm going to, then I will see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of
And now we have an opportunity to help this community step forward into its evolution. Because when you give, you create our future. And our future is wonderful. Because we, I think, are uniquely poised to provide spiritual community to all the spiritual warriors that are out there. They're looking for a place to join with other spiritual warriors. So thank you for your support. And since it's given to us as we give, when we give in gratitude, we say yes to more. We open ourselves to more. So take a minute to think of a couple of things you're grateful for. If one of them is this community, that makes me very happy. But whatever they are, just let yourself be filled up with gratitude for them. Maybe it's your pets or your spouse or your kids or your parents or whoever it is, whatever it is. There is much to be grateful for. And please know with me, I am joyful.
I am joyful.
I am free.
I am free.
I am grateful.
I am grateful.
I give with gratitude.
I give with gratitude.
And I say yes
And I say yes
to all the good life has to offer.
to all the good life has to offer.
And so it is.
And so it is.
And please mark your calendars for, this is listed in your calendar page on the back page of the bulletin, but I want to bring it to your attention. January 21st, we're going to have an annual meeting, but it's going to be much more than that. What we really want to do, what the leadership really wants to do, is hear from you about what you see the future of this center as being. So January 21st, we'll have a community discussion. We'll break into small groups and really talk about what you're thinking and feeling and envisioning for our future. We'll also give you a written wrap-up of 2017 and what we plan to do for this year, but we really want to hear your voice. So if you can come, we'll do potluck lunch. Please plan on being here and staying for that discussion, because the more the merrier, and something like that, absolutely. And don't forget, in your bulletin is a flyer about our retreat, our first regional retreat, April 26th through 29th at Shawnee State Park Lodge in Portsmouth. It's going to be amazing. And early bird registration runs through January 15th. It's $51 off the regular registration. You can go to columbuscenterforspiritualliving.org, and in about 5 seconds you'll get a pop-up about the retreat. So take a look at that last page of your bulletin for everything that's coming up in the near future. Next Thursday, this coming Thursday, is the SNAC Spirituality Discussion Group, which is spiritual, non-agnostic, and questioning. So if you know anybody who's trying to figure out what their spirituality is all about, you might invite them to this facilitated discussion, Thursday from 7 till 8 p.m. Our Christmas service next Sunday will be at a regular time, 10:30 in the morning, but it'll be something special. And our New Year's Eve service will be the same. It will be at 10:30 the following Sunday, and it's going to be way special. So please join us. And also on New Year's Eve, 7 to 8 a.m. is our annual Global World Peace Meditation. I know it's early, but it could be a lot worse. Because if you live in California, it's 4 a.m. because it's global and it's all at the same time. So join us at 7 for that creation of a vibration of world peace all over the place. And so if you'd like prayer after the service, you can ask one of our licensed prayer practitioners who is wearing a teal or a white stole, and they will be happy to pray with you. They're very good at seeing that spiritual truth even when you can't, and are happy to pray with you on Sundays. It's their gift to you, so please use it. You can also leave a prayer request in the back, in that prayer chest, and we'll pick it up. And we have come to the end of our time together today, but I want to remind you that hugs are all about giving and receiving love, and they're also very good for you. So get lots of hugs and give lots of hugs before you leave. Thank you to everyone who's here today making this happen. Ushers, greeters, practitioners, the welcome team. Yay, the band! And all of you. So stand up. Let's do our closing affirmation, our closing song, which is I release and I let go. Woo! Kenny loves this one. So please know with me. Today I realize I don't have to be afraid.
I realize I don't have to be afraid.
I let the love that I am
I let the love that I am
out into the world
out into the world
with courage and joy.
with courage and joy.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Have a great week, everybody.
Shall we? Hey! Well, I really